Eye for an eye is the most misquoted line in the whole Bible, and it means the exact opposite of what you've been told. For years, I read this verse the same way most people do, as permission to get even. It wasn't until I looked at when this law was actually given and how the earliest Jewish scholars actually applied it that I realized I had it backwards. So let's go back to the ancient world this law was written into, because the world before this verse is the key to understanding it. Picture the ancient Near East, centuries before this law was ever written down. There's no police force, no court system like we'd recognize. If someone knocked out your tooth, justice wasn't measured, it was unleashed. A wounded family could burn down a house. An insult could end in a massacre. Revenge had no ceiling. Most people hear eye for an eye and think it's God commanding retaliation, a green light to hurt someone exactly as much as they hurt you. That reading feels obvious on the surface, but it gets the entire purpose of the law backwards. Look at where this appears. Exodus chapter 21 verse 24, Leviticus 24, Deuteronomy 19. Every time it shows up inside a list of legal boundaries, not battlefield instructions, courtroom instructions. And when you compare it to the legal codes already existing in that world, the difference is staggering. The Code of Hammurabi, written in Babylon roughly 2 centuries before Moses, had similar sounding laws, but justice depended on class. If a nobleman injured a commoner, he simply paid a fine. If a commoner injured a nobleman, he could lose a limb or his life. The punishment shifted depending on who you were. The biblical law strips that away entirely. One eye for one eye, regardless of wealth, tribe, or status. Not more, not less. For the first time in that part of the ancient world, a legal code said the punishment could never exceed the crime, no matter who committed it or who it was committed against. That's not a call to violence. That's one of the earliest ceilings on violence in human history. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because Jewish legal tradition didn't stop at no more than an eye, it went further. In the Babylonian Talmud, in the tractate called Bava Kama, the rabbis debate this law in incredible detail, and their conclusion surprises most people who've never studied it. They determined this law was never meant to be carried out literally, tooth for tooth, eye for eye. It was a legal formula for calculating fair compensation. If you damaged someone's eye, you owed them the monetary value of that loss. Medical costs, lost wages, pain, humiliation, measured against the harm actually done. Not mutilation for mutilation, restitution matched to real damage. So the community that received this law first, the same community that read it in its original language and culture, never applied it as a call for matching injuries. They applied it as the world's earliest formula for proportional justice. Now, here's something worth sitting with for a second. If this law was designed to limit revenge, not fuel it, then think about what it means when Jesus quotes it centuries later. If breaking down passages like this, going back to where a law actually started, is something you want more of, that's exactly why this channel exists. Subscribing helps this reach someone else who's read this verse wrong their whole life too. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus says, "You have heard it said, an eye for an eye, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person." People often read that as Jesus canceling an Old Testament rule, but Jesus isn't correcting the law. He's correcting how people had twisted it back into a revenge clause, the very thing it was written to prevent in the first place. He's pulling it back to what it always meant. Don't let the wound decide how far you go. So what do you do with a law like this? Maybe you're holding on to something right now. Someone hurt you and part of you wants to make sure they hurt exactly as much back. This law was never permission for that. It was a boundary against it, thousands of years before anyone told you to turn the other cheek. The heart behind this law was about punishment, and you're bracing for punishment to match your worst moment. The heart behind this law was never cruelty. It was proportion, justice that fits the wound instead of outgrowing it. The verse people quote to justify getting even was actually written to make sure nobody could. That's the truth hiding inside one of the most misunderstood verses in Scripture. It was never a weapon. It was a wall. May you find the grace to live inside that boundary today. God bless you. Does knowing this law was about limiting revenge, not permitting it, change how you read Jesus' words about turning the other cheek? Or does it make his words feel even harder to live out? Which one hits you first? There's another Old Testament law 2 books later that most people think is about punishment too, and it's actually about mercy for the poor. That's next.